An area in which Sweden has had the most extreme policies in the world has been immigration. No country in the world has come close to receiving as many asylum seekers per person as Sweden. Between 1980 and 2007, the country received nearly 1 million asylum seekers to a country of 8 million Swedes. During the same time, only about 10,000 people came here to work. The continent where most of the asylum seekers have come from has been Asia, and breaking down countries, former Yugoslavia followed by Iraq have been the countries most have come from, with Sweden granting asylum to nearly everyone that traveled to the country from the wars there. Labor immigration has been a completely different matter. Very few people have wanted to come here and pay the 65% taxes. Typically only people from third world countries have been interested in doing so. One can suspect that a few immigrants from the USA that come do so for ideological reasons. As can be seen in the table, some years labor immigration from the USA has been a single-digit figure. Brain drain has been quite a problem for Sweden. These are the migration statistics for 2004 and 2005, listing the number of people that arrived from and left for a specific country. If the fact that some of the ones immigrating from the EU are originally from outside Europe is taken into account, the statistics paint a clear picture. People move to Sweden from third world countries and leave Sweden for first world countries such as the USA. In 2005, the migration deficit to the USA was 594 people, and in 2004 it was 417. Most of the circulation to the States is Swedish college students looking for better education than what is offered in Sweden. Plenty of Swedes try their luck on the diversity visa lottery as well. 226 Swedes won a green card in the 2009 lottery and 118 in the 2008 one. Judging by the migration statistics, even Canada is a better country than Sweden. The migration deficit was 25 people in 2005 and 34 in 2004. Even though 1 million people have arrived since 1980, the number of jobs in the private sector are literally on the same level now as back then, hovering just below 3 million. 200,000 government jobs have been added, though they naturally don't add to the country's economy. One could ask oneself if those jobs might simply come from managing the 1 million immigrants, leaving a huge net cost for Swedes to pay for. The cost of immigration to Sweden is a very controversial topic that mass media is very reluctant to discuss. Sometimes newspapers even run stories claiming it's a net profit. The most serious study of the cost of immigration has been done by lecturer in economics Lars Jansson. He found that Sweden's asylum policies meant a net cost of 13.5% of the country's GDP, and that 1/4 of public expenses went towards this. As the country has accepted more and more asylum seekers, Swedes have found that their tax money has provided them with less and less services. Waiting times for healthcare have increased, standards have plummeted. He also found that the asylum policies have sparked an immigration business that in various ways is dependent on tax money, like legal advice for refugees. Naturally, these organizations stress the need for the generous asylum policies to continue. A majority of the asylum seekers that have come to Sweden lack papers, and many of them have a background as terrorists and criminals in their home countries. They claim they're fleeing persecution, though in these cases it's really a matter of legal prosecution. Amnesty International has reported that Sweden harbors no less than 1,500 wanted war criminals who have come here as asylum seekers. Starting in the late 1970s, a few years after the generous asylum policies had been introduced, there was a counter-movement that questioned these policies. Did Sweden really have an obligation to receive anyone that wanted to come here as a so-called refugee? The most significant contributor to this debate was an organization called Bevara Sverige Svenskt, Keep Sweden Swedish. Throughout the 80s, they handed out flyers and attempted to inform people of the costs of immigration. For this, they were stigmatized by mass media. The mainstream perspective on this organization today is almost solely the one of the political establishment. BSS is simply presented as a racist organization that hated foreigners. The skinhead subculture embraced the anti-immigration activism, and for this it was smeared by mass media. The state TV also did its part. On the 18th of October 1986, a show called Barnjournalen had a hateful depiction of skinheads. 2 weeks later, a skinhead named Ronny Öhman was killed by 4 foreigners. You don't have to learn Swedish to vote in Swedish elections. The election authority provides information in no less than 30 foreign languages. If a voter doesn't know Swedish, obviously he or she won't have been able to follow the political debate. Why should they then vote? There is quite a bit of hubris in the attitudes of immigrants towards Sweden. In May of 2006, a Muslim man had been provided with an intern position by the Public Unemployment Office at a workshop designing machine parts. The man in question had little education and had come here as an immigrant, and tax records show that he hadn't held a job for several years, at least not legally. At this company, there was one problem for him though. During the employment interview, one of the people present was a woman, and she wanted to shake his hand. He refused to do that because of his religion, however, and the company saw no other option than to deny him the position. Being a good sport, the man decided to sue the unemployment office for religious discrimination, since they had expected him to ignore his religion. He and his adoptive mother contacted the Ombudsman for discrimination while he briefly returned to his home country of Bosnia for vacation. In 2008, the Ombudsman for discrimination filed a complaint with the Court of Stockholm, asking for 180,000 Swedish crowns in damages, or a little over $20,000, slightly more than what was eventually awarded to the Swedes that fell victim to the forced sterilizations the Social Democrats performed in the mid-20th century. The court didn't display the same insanity that had overtaken the Ombudsman, however, and the damage claim was rejected.